HR and recruiters, what is an instant, well, this person isn't getting the job, thing a candidate can do during a job interview for you? By Ask Reddit. I was interviewing clerks for a gas station. One was a relative of a friend of my supervisor. He was clean and showed up on time. He also answered every question with, back when I was selling crack cocaine. My supervisor said I had to hire him, so I did. It went as well as you might imagine.
Sales experience, A. Fantastic.
You'd think someone who has experience dealing with crackheads would be an asset as a gas station clerk.
A woman casually mentioning that she wanted to set her ex on fire. Totally unprompted and unrelated to anything that had been asked. Later, when asked how to handle difficult customers, she said she would set them on fire as well.
I'm sorry, I will need some context on that. What was the position she was applying to? Edit. LOL, this turned more into a how can we get this fire devil of a woman employed thread.
Retail. In a video game shop. This was a group interview and she was there at the recommendation of someone who already worked in the shop. That person was also there helping with the interviews and kept trying to drop hints to stop talking about setting people on fire, but she just kept going.
Working retail, sometimes felony arson and attempted murder are the best ways to deal with customers' IMO.
Had a guy literally sprint out of the building. I wasn't the interviewer, I am a web developer, but as we were trying to hire a second developer, I was asked to prepare some basic web development questions. These were not hard. These were absolute bare basics, baby's first code stuff. This guy came in, started interviewing and was apparently doing okay, not fantastic but enough to keep him in consideration. Then he saw that we had a test and he apparently grabbed his bag and ran out of the room. All I saw was this guy sprint full tilt past the rest of the office, shoulder barge out the door and run off into the distance, followed by our two directors stumbling out of the interview office laughing uncontrollably. I guess he lied on his CV.
What were the questions?
It was seriously like using HTML and CSS, make a rectangle in the middle of the web page and give it a shadow, kind of basic.
If you give me 24 hours, I could do that. I'm a nurse.
My biggest takeaway from reading this thread is that some absolute morons are getting interviews pretty easily, and I am struggling to get to the interview stage for any job.
If it helps, they probably get the interview because they lied on their resume. I am looking to fill a position right now and all I have to go by is resumes. Edit. Friends, keep reading below before you decide I am advocating for lying on resumes.
I was interviewing someone who had previously worked at the American Embassy in his home country. The language barrier was very difficult and he was having a tough time with the interview. Partway through, he showed me some certificates he received from the embassy job, as awards for good work. The conversation then went like this: me, can you tell me the story about some of these awards? Him, ha. Me, I'd like to know why you received these awards. Maybe you can pick one of them and tell me the story about how you got it. Him, awards. Me, yes, these things you're showing me right now. Tell me about them. Him, they are awards. Me, right. Tell me how you received them. Him, how? Me, yes. What did you do to get them? Him, I dunno. It's your embassy, you tell me. That last bit was the longest sentence he spoke to me during the entire interview.
These are my awards, mother. From Army.
Robin Williams in Mrs. Doubtfire, I am Job.
I once interviewed a guy who spoke English as a second language for an internal promotion. He was actually very fluent though, and the language barrier didn't seem to be an issue at all. Then we hit a snag. Me, and in what capacity did you support this project? Him with a confused look, well, it was here in San Diego. I have never been to a Kappa city. He eventually understood the question and we had a good laugh. He got the job BTW.
This one's pretty funny. Dude's clearly a hard worker but isn't fluent in the language.
Listen man, I can barely speak the language. You think I can read these long ass words on these certificates?
Been doing a bunch of interviews lately for an intermediate network engineer. I had a guy start off an interview with, "I don't really know anything about networking."
Where is the PO? If someone said it was next to the SFP, would that be on her thigh? Had a guy who was a little rough but was looking quite promising for a design role. He blew it with me by saying I'll turn this company around in 6 weeks and a few more comments along those lines with a theme of "you are currently messing it up. This is a small successful company." I wanted him to fit in, not turn us round.
And most of these amazing ideas are "why don't you just?" followed by something that doesn't work, and is obvious to someone who really knows the company.
I call it the third year syndrome. Knows just enough to do their job with someone hand feeding them tasks, but thinks they've figured out the entire industry.
TBF, some interview guides suggest you should present ideas what you could contribute or even improve, so it doesn't surprise me if some people don't quite get it and take it too far.
I've found what works for me is if they ask for ideas that I could bring, I frame it as options I'd start looking into coupled with "I'd love to hear about the things you've already tried to narrow down the list." Humility while demonstrating that you're capable of the right breadth of thought is my ideal message to convey to them.
Friend of a friend, call him Bob for short, got a job despite not being the best qualified candidate. None. Then they asked any questions, and he replied, "Could you tell me if you'd have a problem with a teacher dating a student?" Yes. Yes they would. Bob got the job. Edit. Since lots of people have asked, this was a secondary school with 6th form in the UK, so age 11 to 18.
Considering you're a dog trainer, Charlie, yes we would.
This is not a cat house.
But what if she looks 20? Sir, it doesn't matter how old she looks, she'd still be a teenager. No, she's not a teenager yet. So when do I start?
Age considerations aside, just the power dynamic between the two is a serious ethics flag.
Totally, I get your concern, but I'm still very immature and I'm learning from my students all the time. I'm basically one of the students.
I just don't get why you would ever ask that.
It's on his record and he knows they will check.
Even if it is on his record, asking like that, it seems like he's asking permission to do it again.
Charlie got a job at my school instead.
My school had a string of 3 consecutive band teachers who had relations with students. One of them left his wife and kids to elope with a student to another state. Rumor has it they're still together almost a decade later. Edit. If people could stop making jokes about pedophilia, that'd be great. Thanks.
When I worked in a bank as a manager, one internal candidate I interviewed put her finger in front of my face while I was talking and said, "I'm gonna stop you right there." I went with the other person who didn't put their finger to my face.
Did she trace her finger over your lips? Like them erotic podcast stories. Deleted.
Did she pick your nose for you?
I think I found my new fetish.
I hope she also wiggled that finger a little.
So many, making comments about getting into an employee's skirt as they walked past, also how to get reported to HR before even getting the job. Explaining how they took copies of all the company's code home. Explaining how they used to work 2 jobs at once, pretending to work for one from home, explaining how they program games for their PlayStation with Notepad. While being interviewed by programmers for a sales role, telling the interviewer that the problem they are trying to solve is impossible, even though it was literally 3 lines of code. It was a warm-up question.
I'm curious what the impossible problem is now.
Hello world.
Saying hello to entire world is definitely impossible.
Convert a 24-bit RGB value to a 16-bit RGB value. Candidate may ask about if it's 565 or 555 or some other format. Candidate may confirm it loses precision, etc. Solution is a really simple C function which involves bit shifting. When I tried to move on, he wanted to keep coming back to it to tell me how wrong it was that I gave him such a question. He failed the would I ever work with person test so many times over.
I've been coding for over a decade and have never seen a question like this. Wouldn't have the foggiest idea. But I'm guessing it's something you would consider common knowledge for whatever the job entails. Either way, I'm seeing 24-bit to 16-bit and thinking that's probably losing about 33% somewhere. I know nothing of compression algorithms though. Damn it, now I have to do research face with symbols on mouth none.
Okay, I looked it up and like that, you're already more qualified.
I don't get it.
If they were skilled enough to write, say, PS1 games in Notepad with ASM and C and run them on an emulator, the odds are good they'd be intelligent enough to realize that has no relevance to a sales position.